We're alive.
Are we?
Yeah.
Cool. Hey.
Hey, welcome to Meatless Monday. We're trying some new things again. We're on StreamYard, and we've got an extra phone that'll act as another camera. So, yeah, this should be really good.
Let's hope. Oh, yeah.
So,
lights.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
There we go. It helps. All right.
So today we're going to be talking about diabetes. Carolyn is going to be making a great lentil dish. That's about all I know about it right now.
Yes, lentils. Love lentils. Go.
Yes. Now, we as we're getting started with talking about diabetes, a big thing about diabetes is animal fats and how they clog up your body's ability to use insulin. Now, we had a really interesting question from a person that watches us sometimes about Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers, things like that. What do you know about that question?
I think it was just a question about had we ever talked about Beyond Meat before. So, yeah, we've probably talked about it a few times, but haven't spent a lot of time talking about it. So
the way I generally think about it is that the ideal diet, the perfect diet, is fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and water. Maybe I shouldn't go so far as saying perfect, but it's the best that if you're going to follow the evidence and eat the way the evidence leads you, you're going to eat fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and water.
Handful of nuts and seeds.
Right.
Those are okay.
Now, the opposite extreme is the keto diet. A little better than the keto diet is meat and three meals a day.
Standard American
I've been
diet.
there before. Right. It sure put on a lot of weight for me.
Yeah.
Now, where between perfect and the keto diet are the Beyond Burgers and the Impossible Burgers and their other products? Well, they're kind of over here. They're not as bad as meat, but the whole point of these products is to try to make something that tastes as much like meat as possible. And that's their priority. Their priority isn't to make it healthy. Their priority is to make it taste like meat using plant-based products or plant-based ingredients. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're trying to make it really healthy. And there have been some studies in the last couple of years that surprised me that showed that a junk food vegan diet can actually be less healthy than a standard American diet. And that blew me away. And an Impossible Burger, a Beyond Beef or Beyond Burger, Beyond Meat product, they can be in that kind of junk food vegan kind of category.
Yeah, I think what they were talking about more in that study was people who eat lots of French fries, Doritos, donuts, Oreo cookies that are, accidentally vegan, stuff like that. But
I agree. But that's basically saying that it's over here and the stuff that's not so good for you. And I don't think it's proven. Is it closer to a great diet than the standard American diet, meat and three meals a day? Or is it actually worse than that? That's not really proven.
Well, so here's the way I look at it. So with Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers and Impossible Whoppers at Burger King, things like that, the way I think about it is they are transition foods. And so if you're trying to get away from eating a diet that is heavy in animal-based products, but you still like the taste of meat, then it's a stepping stone toward eating a healthier diet. Now, another way to think about it is there are a lot of reasons that people would eat plant-based. So it's not just for their health. And so we focus on health. But there are a couple other reasons that people might consider eating a plant-based diet. One of them is if they really care about animal rights and animal suffering and that kind of thing, or if they are very into climate change, which I really am very interested in climate change. And I'm in that new book called Food is Climate. So I really do care about how our food industry impacts climate change. And it is quite a lot. And so I have some recipes in that new book, Food is Climate. It's available on Amazon, written by Glenn Mercer, and we interviewed him last month. So you could go back and watch last month's interview. But the three big reasons people eat plant-based are for the climate, for the animals, and then for your own health. So if what you care about is climate change and animal rights, then sure, Beyond Burgers and Beyond Impossible Whoppers and Beyond Burgers and things like that, sure, because that's not as damaging to the environment, and it obviously isn't as damaging to animals. But as far as your own health goes, look at the fat content of Beyond Meat. If you go to the grocery store and you pick up a package of Beyond Meat burgers and look at the fat content, it's pretty high in fat. And what they're trying to do to make it feel like meat in your mouth and taste like meat, but give it that mouth feel, is a lot of coconut oil. And there's a lot of saturated fat in coconut oil. And so if you, with Food for Life, I'm a Food for Life instructor with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And one of the things we teach is trying to get less than 3 grams of fat in every serving of food. And Beyond Burgers have, I think, 20 to 24 grams of fat in one burger. So that's a lot of fat.
Yeah.
But if if your whole motivation for eating plant-based isn't your own health, then sure, but if you're taking baby steps to get to eating plant-based, then it's a transition food. It's a stepping stone.
So I've heard the CEO of Beyond Meat interviewed before on a podcast, and he doesn't make any bones about it. His goal is to save the planet.
Right.
And his intention is to make a food product that has less of a carbon footprint than meat.
Right.
And he did that. And I think it's a decent transition food. It's a step away from meat, which is really most important if it's a step as part of your bigger journey towards a diet that's more fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and water.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think Beyond Meat has its place. I know several people that I've worked with who are interested in changing to a plant-based diet, afraid they won't be able to eat something that tastes like a burger they're used to. Sure. I mean, having one every now and then, that's not that big of a deal. But if you're eating them every day, I probably wouldn't do that.
So look, we could talk about this topic, but we probably better get back to circle this back around to diabetes.
Well, so yeah, our whole topic tonight was supposed to be diabetes, but I think that was a really good question. It's a valid question because it is out there. You can go to you can go to Burger King and get an Impossible Whopper, which I think is very much like Beyond Meat. It's a plant-based option.
So we're going to let go of that topic some now and turn towards the diabetes that we had kind of said that we were going to talk about tonight, I think. Now, we're not going to totally let go of this because it does apply because the coconut oils, the palm oils, the saturated fats, they do or would be expected to clog up your body's ability to use insulin, a lot like the saturated fats from animal products.
Right. Exactly. So, and like I said, Beyond Meat, I think it has its place, but it is very high in fat. So monitor how much fat. I mean, in Physicians Committee, we don't really want people to get more than about 20 grams of fat all day long. And so if it's got 20 something grams of fat in one burger, then you're kind of going over your daily.
So one reason that animal fat and the amount of saturated fat is so important is diabetes.
Right.
And it's the connection between saturated fat and diabetes that honestly has me really excited to talk about diabetes. In my practice, we are very, very often turning around diabetes. And it's been for a couple years now that I've realized, I've got some people that are doing so well that had been deep into the diabetes, and now they're doing so well. I need some way to take back that diagnosis of diabetes. And it's kind of weird in the world of medical coding. I mean, taking something back isn't always obvious how to do it.
Once you're diagnosed with that, can it be taken back off of your list of diagnoses?
Well, so there is now a diagnosis called history of diabetes. And there's actually been, I wish I could remember what agency it was. I think it was the American College of Physicians saying that you should be able to say that somebody has a history of diabetes or diabetes in remission if their hemoglobin A1C is lower than 6.5 without any medicines.
Ah, okay. So it'd be like being in remission with something, kind
Right.
of like cancer in remission. Okay.
Right. Saying that your vulnerability to getting diabetes, if your diet is bad, is still there and should still be respected, but that you might actually not have diabetes now.
Right. I know a few people like that.
But this is really exciting because I tell you, 10 years ago, I mean, or at least 15 years ago, we really thought that diabetes was like a tattoo. It's never going away.
Right. A tattoo. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, really good point. So one of the thing I'm cooking tonight actually comes from Dr. Neil Bernard's book, so Dr. Neil Bernard is the director of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So this is the book. It's Dr. Neil Bernard's program for reversing diabetes.
Yeah. And so he really, I mean, in my experience, he was really kind of one of the pioneers of the idea that you could cure diabetes by eliminating the animal fats from your diet.
Right.
Now, I put on a program, or I guess that's fair to say, I put on a program with the M4A, the Montgomery Area Agency on Aging.
Middle Alabama Area Agency.
I was so
on
close.
Aging. You're so close. Middle Alabama Area Agency on Aging.
Okay.
There's 4 A's.
Well, we usually call it M4A.
M4A. 4 A's because Middle Alabama Area Agency on Aging.
No,
4 A's.
I had 3. But I put on a program for them recently, or they have this lunch thing that's a
coffee talk is what
coffee
it's called.
talk.
Yes, okay. You can go to Middle Alabama Area Agency on Aging or the Panda Project.
So I'm going to play for you now the presentation that I made, and my hope is that when you really see the visual of how the fat and the insulin and the glucose interact at the cellular level, it can help you understand how you can actually cure diabetes, and you might come away as excited about it as I am. So roll the video.
Sure, go.
I'm sure this will go smoothly.
Let's hope.
These are the ideas that have really given us power over diabetes. There's a cell. The cell has a receptor that is acting like a keyhole. There's a door that can be either opened or closed. And there's a blood vessel, also called a capillary. Now the blood vessel, it carries fuel and supplies to the cell, and it carries waste products away. And one of the main fuels that the capillary brings to the cell is glucose. Glucose gets close to the cell and it will diffuse out into the fluid around the cell. But that door is closed, so it can't get into the cell. And the way this glucose diffuses or drifts out all around the cell, the glucose in this area around the cell will be at about the same concentration as the glucose that's in the capillary. Now, some of the other things that the capillary carries to the cell are these keys, also called insulin. And what these keys do is they also drift out into the fluid around the cell. And some of the keys will have contact with this keyhole. When they make contact with the keyhole, a chain of events happens inside the cell that opens up this door. When this door is open, the glucose can drift into the cell. Now, the cell loves this because glucose is its favorite fuel. It burns glucose more efficiently than any other fuel. It doesn't produce as many waste products as when the cell tries to burn fat or burn ketones. Now, this whole arrangement goes wrong in type 2 diabetes. How does it go wrong? Over decades, a person takes in more calories than they burn off, and fuel or energy accumulates in the body, and it accumulates in the form of fat. And a lot of this fat will be inside the cell. And this fat will gum up the mechanism, gum up the connection between this keyhole and the door will wind up getting stuck shut. The cell will gradually burn off all of its glucose, and it's left trying to use less efficient fuels for energy. It doesn't do as well, you don't feel as good, and your body will keep trying and trying to get more glucose into the cell. Since the glucose can't get into the cell, it'll back up into this fluid around the cell. You'll get more and more glucose here, and it'll back up into the bloodstream. Now, all this extra glucose in the bloodstream, it is harmful to the bloodstream. It causes gunk to build up in the insides of the blood vessels. That gradually ruins the blood vessels, and it causes the problems that we think of when we think of the bad things that happen with diabetes. This is where we were in understanding this about 30 years ago. And we would tell people, oh, go lose 50 pounds and you'll get rid of all this fat in the cell and your diabetes will get a whole lot better. And we had a few people succeed at this, but not very many, because it's really hard to lose that fat in the cell. Now, the idea that came around, in my experience, somewhere around 10 or 15 years ago, wound up being very, very powerful. And the idea is that the fat that's causing trouble isn't just in the cell, it's also out here around the keyhole. And there's this fat that's all floating around out here, and it's actually causing a lot of the problem that is causing the glucose to be unable to get into the cell because the keyhole is blocked and the insulin can't work. And it winds up that this fat that's around the cell is very closely connected to the amount of fat that's in the bloodstream. Now, that's exciting because the amount of fat that's in the bloodstream, that can change, and that can change pretty fast because this isn't connected quite so much to the fat that you carry. It's much more connected to the amount of fat that you're consuming. So if you decrease the amount of fat that you're eating, you can make a big difference with this very quickly. So when you decrease the amount of fat that's in the bloodstream, the fat that has been around the cell starts drifting over into the blood and it gets carried away. And this makes it so that the insulin can make contact with the keyhole again and open the door. This lets the glucose start getting into the cell again. That brings a lot of this glucose back out of the bloodstream. A lot of this is getting right on into the cell. And your body's happy again. Your body can run its machinery as efficiently as possible because there's plenty of glucose in the cell. The glucose in the blood is decreased back down to a normal level or to a much closer to normal level, and everything's going a whole lot better. This very simple idea has really given us power over diabetes. I hope you find this helpful. I really think it can give you power to improve your diabetes, perhaps even cure it.
So that was very informative. Turn that back down. Okay.
So I hope that helps you see why.
Take that out. I can't make it
I
anymore.
hope that helps you see why I'm really excited about diabetes and how I'm excited about curing it. You decrease, I mean, the way I think of it, though it's certainly more complicated, is you eliminate the animal fats from your diet. You have less animal fat in your bloodstream. That gets it so that there's less animal fat around your cells. and your body can use insulin much better. It's a big step towards making type 2 diabetes much better. For some people, it even cures it. For some people, it's just a step in the right direction, but a big step usually.
Right. So if you have questions about what you just saw in that video, you can type them on the bottom in the comments and we'll try to answer them. Even if you're watching this as a replay, we'll go back and read any comments and try to answer them. So I'm going to make a dish really quickly that is from this book, the Dr. Neil Bernard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. And it is a Lebanese style lentils and pasta. So the book is probably mostly science, but the first at least 2/3 of it. And then the second 2/3 are an awful lot of recipes, really good recipes, all kinds of things, muesli cereal and tofu scramble, fruit smoothies, guacamole, refried beans, creamy poppy seed dressing. There's all kinds of really nice looking recipes in here. So, but the Lebanese style lentils and pasta kind of stuck out to me because I love lentils. It has onions and garlic. I love garlic. It has cumin. This kind I just used Whole Foods brand organic cumin, and kale. So it calls for any kind of green like chard kale, any other greens, frozen spinach, whatever. But I love kale, so I did kale. It has 4 ounces of spaghetti noodles. So I used this kind. It asks for whole wheat, preferably. So, but it's only 4 ounces, and this bag is 16 ounces. So it's 1/4 of the bag. So 4 ounces, you could just kind of eyeball 1/4 of the bag, or you could use a kitchen scale. Like I have my little handy dandy kitchen scale right here, and measured out 4 ounces of it. And then it says break it into about 4-inch long pieces. So broke that up into 4-inch long pieces. So that's about 4 ounces in 4-inch long pieces. And then parsley or cilantro, some fresh lemon juice, and some salt and pepper. That's it. So it's a really simple recipe, but it sounds really good. And then Lebanese style, in Lebanese cooking, traditionally things like za'atar and sumac are more of the traditional Lebanese seasonings, and they don't use za'atar and sumac in here, but they do use lemon juice. So I'm assuming that the lemon juice kind of substitutes for sumac, because sumac is used, this is sumac, and it's used more as kind of a sour flavor. So I'm guessing that's why they used lemon juice instead, because that's easier to find than sumac. But the way I look at recipes is kind of like a suggestion. So I may just throw in some sumac and some za'atar. And if you're in the Montgomery area, this za'atar was made by Karen Pruce with Fennel and Fig, and she's open. Fennel and Figs is now open in Old Cloverdale. So I'm pretty sure she's got her hand blended seasonings at her store in Old Cloverdale. So I would go check that out. She'll also make you vegan desserts if you ask for them. So she did the wedding cake actually for our son's wedding back in May. So she did the wedding cake and she did a bunch of vegan cupcakes for us. So yeah, check that out. Okay, so what the recipe calls for is 1 cup of lentils. And I have already cooked them because that takes about 25 minutes. So it's 5 cups of low sodium vegetable broth and 1 cup of lentils. That's a lot of broth. That ratio of 5 cups of broth to 1 cup of lentils is more than you really need to cook lentils. But there's a reason they did that in this recipe. It's because they want to have the rest of the broth become part of a sauce. And so the lentils have already been cooked in this big pot right here, if I can lift it. Oh my goodness. So I've already cooked 1 cup of lentils in 5 cups of broth, and then set that aside. And the lentils are mostly done. Okay. So yeah, they're pretty much done, but they're in a lot of broth, which is good. We want that to be the case. Okay. So then I have a large pan like this, big, deep frying pan. And when we cook with Food for Life recipes, we don't use oil. So, or very little, like minimal amounts of oil. Most people, when they are cooking with oil, go glug, glug, glug and cook like, and pour lots and lots of oil on things. But oil is really, really high in fat and calories and doesn't have a lot of nutrients. So you're not getting a lot of nutritional bang for your buck. So you do want to try and decrease the oil and use other cooking methods if you can. So what I am doing is using water to what we call steam fry. And then I have 2 onions, 2 medium-sized onions already chopped. And I have, the recipe calls for 2 cloves of garlic. Like I said, I think of recipes as a suggestion. So this is probably more like 3 cloves of garlic because I really like garlic. And then some cumin. So it's about a teaspoon. And I'm just using this kind, the Whole Foods brand organic cumin. And wait for my pan to heat up. And then we'll cook the onions, the garlic, and the cumin until the onions are soft and the garlic is soft and they're starting to get a little translucent. If you don't want to do it in a frying pan with a little bit of water, you could just nuke it in the microwave for about 6 or 7 minutes, and that will get it translucent too. But I like the way it smells when we have garlic cooking and onions cooking. So I'm going to go ahead and dump these in the nice warm pan. Okay. And we should have a camera angle over here to be able to look at it in just a second. Working on that. Okay. And we have the onions, the garlic, and the cumin. Dump that all in this pan. Okay, so it's called steam frying or dry sautéing. You could try, thinking of it that way too. So we can start with it dry, and if it starts to stick, then we'll use a little bit of water to keep it from sticking. There we go. No, that one, add. There we go. Okay, so bring it over here a little closer to the pan. You can see it's not sticking yet. There you go. It's not sticking, and I can hear it starting to sizzle. Okay, add just a little bit of water because, like I said, we're steam frying. Okay. And that's going to cook for just a few minutes. So we're also using lentils that I already cooked, and lentils are fabulous. I love lentils because they're a really good source of protein and fiber and calcium. Lentils are excellent. In fact, what I'm using, I'll show you the kind I'm using, is this Palouse brand. We eat a lot of lentils. So it's a really big bag, and it's down to probably only have a third of the bag left. So these are Pardina lentils is what they're called. And you can find these on Amazon, but they're grown in, I believe, Washington State. I think that's right. But yeah, they're really excellent for protein and fiber and calcium and a little magnesium and some potassium. So lentils are super good for you. So we try to eat those. In fact, if you're trying to add more beans to your diet and you're worried about side effects like gas, then start small. Start with lentils and other small beans, like mung beans and lentils are really little, and you're going to get less gas from those. Okay, so those are starting to get a little more translucent. Add a little more water. Let's see if we can get our camera back to be able to see that. Or I could try tilting this down. Should I try just tilting that down, or are you coming back? Okay. So I'm going to add. Can you add that? There you go. Add. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and then right there. Okay, so you can see that they're even starting to brown just a little bit. That looks really good. Okay, so we're going to cook those until they're soft, just a little bits of water just to prevent it from sticking. And then we're going to actually pour in that big container of lentils and all the broth. All right, so this is a big container of lentils with lots and lots of broth in it. And I'm dumping that in. Okay. And we'll let that get nice and hot. I'm going to bring that up to a boil, actually. All right, can you come back with the camera? Okay. And then we are going to add in the greens and the pasta. So this is when the pasta gets cooked. So I'm dumping all that pasta in. Okay. And I'm adding in the greens. All right, so I've added the pasta and the greens. You didn't get to see the pasta go in, but it's in there. So you can see some of that pasta. There we go, pasta. All right, and I've added in the greens. You could use Swiss chard. You could use spinach. I think the kale is going to hold up a little bit better to cooking it until the pasta is done. And then you could also add in, if you don't like cilantro, don't add cilantro, but you could also add in cilantro or parsley. So we're going to add that in. I have some cilantro and parsley because I like both of them. Okay. So we have cilantro, we have parsley. Oops, just tossing it all over the place here.
Not
Okay.
much smell to it yet.
Not yet. Hang on. Okay, you could also add some cayenne pepper if you want to. If you like spicy stuff, then add some cayenne pepper. And we're letting this simmer uncooked. Uncovered. I'm trying to say uncovered, not uncooked. Uncovered. Because when you cover greens, then what happens is they turn yellow a lot faster. So if you put a cover on it, what happens is that steam comes up from the greens, hits the cover, and then drips back down onto the greens. And it's going to make them turn yellow a lot faster. And we do not want that to happen. So we want our greens to stay nice and green. So when you are cooking any kind of greens, make sure you don't put a cover on them, especially spinach, because that turns yellow really quickly. But kale too. So, okay. It's down in there. All right. And that's going to cook for just a few minutes while we talk a little bit more about diabetes. Okay. So we have added the greens, the pasta, and the parsley and cilantro. And then it's been brought to a boil. We're reducing the heat down to medium and cooking it uncovered for a few minutes until that pasta gets done. And that's probably going to take it about 10 minutes. Let's see what it says on the package as far as how long this takes. Let's see. Oh, 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so that's just about right. Because it's a whole grain pasta, so whole wheat pasta takes a little bit longer to cook than your white pastas because it has more fiber. It has a little more to it.
So you think, what, 9 more minutes?
Probably so. Okay.
What time are you on?
My watch. That's good.
Okay.
And I had a bunch of water out to be able to steam cook the onions and garlic. I didn't use very much of it because I actually wanted it to get a little more translucent, a little more browned. So I didn't use much of the water. I still have some water left. And then when it gets completely done, we're going to add the lemon juice. I squeezed 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. So that was about, I still have a half a lemon left. So that was about 1.5 lemons. Depends on your lemon. So, but sometimes they're bigger than others. But I got about 2 tablespoons out of about 1.5 lemons. So, okay. And in the meantime, yes, this is something that you can eat if you're a diabetic. because so what we want to try and do with diabetes is keep your glycemic load low. And that's the reason that we're eating the whole grain pasta instead of white pasta. So yes, if you are diabetic, you can eat pasta. But go for the whole grain pastas or the brown rice pastas. There are some new pastas out there that are made totally out of beans, which are really cool. Although they will give you the same side effects as beans do, because they're made out of beans. So we have, this looks really good. Look at that. It's looking delicious. Okay, so if you are diabetic, yes, you can eat rice, but try to go for whole grain rice like brown rice instead. Because white rice and white pasta and white bread, those are the kinds of things that are going to get into your system faster, which is not good, because when you're trying to decrease your glycemic load, you want to have foods that are a little more complex for your body to try and take longer to digest, basically. So it's kind of like the difference between drinking a big glass of sugar water, also known as like Coca-Cola, one of those kind of things that gets in your system really quickly, versus drinking, you know, something that's a lot more complicated than that, or eating fruit, eating a piece of fruit instead of a glass of orange juice. So if you just eat a piece of fruit, eat an orange instead of drinking orange juice, it's more complicated. It takes your body longer to digest. It'll keep your glycemic load much lower. And what that means is it won't spike your blood sugar up really, really fast. And if your blood sugar spikes up really high, it's also going to drop down really quickly and make you really hungry. So that's why, you know, if you drink something like a Coke, then half an hour later to an hour later, you're going to be really hungry because your glycemic index your glycemic load went way up and then plummeted back down, bringing your blood sugar way up, plummeting back down, and that makes you hungry. So we want to try and keep your glycemic load low by eating more complex foods like whole grains. So rice is fine, but try to go for brown rice if you can. White rice won't kill you. If you look at the fact that in Asian countries for thousands of years, they've been eating white rice and they have way less diabetes and heart disease than we do. So, or they did until we brought McDonald's to Asian countries. All right. Oh, this is looking so good. It smells really good now. You can smell it, can't you?
Yeah.
It smells great. Okay, so we're also trying to cook down. You can see that the liquid is starting to evaporate out of here, which is what we want, because it's just going to leave it kind of saucy, but not like a soup. So it'll have a nice sauce to it when it's all done. It's almost there. Okay, so I would say that all of the recipes in this Reversing Diabetes book are perfectly fine for somebody who is diabetic to eat them. But also, if you're also trying to just prevent diabetes, if you don't want to have diabetes, diabetes is in my family. I know. Do you have any diabetic people in your family?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. There's been diabetes in my family, both type 1 and type 2. So I do think about that. But I know that if you're diabetic, you could eat anything out of that book. And this would be a really good dish if you're diabetic.
Yeah.
So, and we're adding lemon juice to it, which when you add lemon juice to things, that also helps decrease the glycemic load.
So a lot of the great things she's saying about this dish, about how healthy it is, mainly because it's so low in fat and the glycemic index isn't too awful high, so the sugar isn't rushing into your system too quickly. I say those in the order of importance. The low animal fat or saturated fat is the most important with type 2 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly it's converted into sugar is the second most important.
Right.
But a really neat thing to think about is that we've been really excited about bowls recently. And a bowl is a layer of a grain, a layer of a bean, a layer of a green, a layer of a vegetable, and a sauce. And a cool thing is, this is a bowl.
Pretty much is.
Yeah,
it has
the pasta is a grain.
It has
the
lentils
are beans.
And the kale is the greens.
And the onion is a vegetable. And you've got a broth that acts as a sauce. This is a version of a bowl.
It is. So a simpler bowl would be just a layer of grains, a layer of greens, and a layer of beans. But we always like to add an extra vegetable in there too, and a sauce of some kind. But
Which for this is the onion.
Yep.
But we're really excited about bowls because Plant Bay on 175 Lee Street, our plant-based restaurant here in town, they just started a Dr. Strickland seasonal bowl that's really good.
Oh, it is really good. We've eaten it 3 times in the last 5 days.
But if you check out our YouTube channel, Strickland's and Friends, a seasonal whole food plant-based cookbook, if you check out our YouTube channel, you can actually see a video of me eating the Dr. Strickland bowl, and it'll also point you towards some videos on bowls, and we made bowls for a week and taped that, and also talked a little bit about bowls in general.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of a bowl. So we could eat it out of like a shallow bowl, like a soup. Now, this is going to get less soupy in just a second, but it's going to absorb, the pasta continues to absorb all the liquid out of it.
That looks good.
Doesn't it? It's really good. And we're still adding lemon juice, and I may add a little sumac to it and some za'atar just for some good seasoning.
So I talked a little bit earlier about how a whole food plant-based diet can turn around diabetes, greatly improve type 2 diabetes, and many people actually cure it. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Now, also earlier, I played a video. I'm responding to one of the questions here. Okay. We played a video showing how decreasing the fat in your diet improves your body's ability to use insulin. All this is true of type 2 diabetes, and it's also true of impaired fasting glucose or pre-diabetes, whichever name you go by.
Is that the same thing, like metabolic syndrome? Is that the same thing as pre-diabetes? What's the difference?
Metabolic syndrome includes difficulty handling blood sugar.
Okay.
So it can either be pre-diabetes or diabetes as part of the metabolic syndrome.
Okay.
Type 2 diabetes.
So if somebody's told they are pre-diabetic, then what would you suggest that they do if they are pre-diabetic? If their doctor says you're about to be diabetic by the next time I see you, you're pre-diabetic, what would they do right now to fix that?
Eliminate the animal fats from your diet so your body can use insulin more easily.
Okay.
Would be the number one thing to do, and that's going to help you make a lot of progress. The next thing to do is try to eliminate the animal fat or decrease the animal fat that you're carrying, because that animal fat that you carry also makes it more difficult for your body to use insulin.
Animal fat that you carry, meaning like we're animals and we have fat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like
abdominal fat. Oh, that would be good. Okay. There we go. Yeah, reach this a little better.
Yeah.
Just reaching across here. That works. This looks really good and it smells amazing.
So for some people, preparing their vegetables in a way that doesn't use a lot of oil is a challenge. And the less oil you use, the better you're going to be at not having the fats in your foods clog up your body's ability to use insulin. Also, the less oil you use, the less calorie dense your food is going to be. And very likely that's going to help you lose the animal fat that you're carrying in your belly that is making it more difficult for your body to use insulin. And that's the underlying cause of type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes and impaired fasting glucose.
Okay. So
now, air frying is a great way to prepare your vegetables without having that oil, without having that fat. So I really, one of you mentioned that you're using an air fryer.
I love
it's
my
a great
air
way
fryer.
to go.
Yeah, we love the air fryer. So in fact,
as long as you're not somehow adding oil.
Well, you really shouldn't add a lot of oil to an air fryer because it could actually catch fire. So like you're not supposed to pour oil in there. That's dangerous. So if you do use oil, you want to use a teeny little spritz of oil, not much.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a fire in our kitchen since we went plant-based, have we?
Well, it'd be more than 12 years ago now. So yeah, no, it's oil that catches fire. Except for the parchment paper that kind of lit up in the oven the other day for a minute because I was roasting some things on parchment paper, but under the broiler, that caught fire, but not for very long. I
do think that cooking plant-based meals is a lot more safe.
That's true.
Like when we were dating, I did a fish fry at my apartment. that didn't go very well.
The smoke alarm went off, and I was afraid.
Oh, dude, it was flat on fire in the
It was
kitchen. It was bad.
Well, and the smoke alarm went off, and I thought that the fire department might show up.
Cooking vegetables is much more
This
safe.
is much safer. Yeah, in a lot of ways. Safer for your heart, safer for your kitchen fire thing. Yeah. So, yes, that was pretty bad. It smelled terrible for a really long time at your apartment. So I think these are done. This looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to turn it down, way down low, and then add the 2 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Oh, there went a seed that I missed. Luckily, I caught that. Okay, I didn't realize there was a seed in there. It is fresh squeezed lemon juice. That happens. Okay, and we'll stir that in. And then, some shallow bowls. You want to grab a couple shallow bowls, and we'll serve this up. I think that, like I said, recipes are suggestions. So I think I may add a little bit of this za'atar. Okay, so za'atar is a Lebanese seasoning. Since this is a Lebanese lentil and pasta dish, za'atar, the way Karen makes it, has thyme, sumac, sesame seeds, and a little bit of sea salt. So, and I remember I mentioned sumac already, so there's sumac in this. So I'll just leave the sumac out and put za'atar on top. Okay, turn that off and find a nice big spoon to scoop it up with. Okay. Oh, yeah, look at that. I'll get you some of the broth. There you go. You still see that? Oh, yeah, that looks good. Hold it right over there under that camera. There you go. That's perfect. Look at that. And then we'll sprinkle a little bit of za'atar on top.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We love za'atar. There we go. Hello, Bella. Okay, let me get you a spoon or a fork. It's hard to tell if you need a spoon or a fork with this. I don't really know. So I'll give you one of each. I don't know. Because it has a lot of broth, but it also has a lot of solid stuff. So it's kind of like a stew, I guess. Let's see. Tell me what you think. Ooh, this looks good. All right. Look at that. That is beautiful. Okay, how is it? Good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, I forgot. You can put some salt and pepper on it too. Forgot the fresh salt and pepper. Fresh cracked pepper. Here we go. Have a little fresh cracked pepper. There you go.
Well, it's not that I necessarily want imitation meat or things to taste like meat anymore. But I tell you, those lentils, the texture of the lentils in this za'atar,
Good stuff.
it really gave me it was like, oh my gosh, it's like some really highly flavored beef stew from long ago. But better in that it's not hurting me. But
or the planet or animals.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good
But
stuff.
this is from Fennel and Figs. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, if you hold it up to this one, it's a little easier to see. Yeah, Fennel and Figs is Karen Pruse's bakery, but she also makes lots of hand mixed seasonings. And she's in Old Cloverdale. So she just got an actual brick and mortar store. So I would go check that out. And like I said, she'll make you vegan desserts too.
But za'atar comes in a lot of different varieties. If you can, if you find some, it's really tasty on something like this.
That's
But,
really good.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that lemon juice, yeah, that hits the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the lemon juice. That's good. So it's too bad there's no such thing as smell-o-vision, so you guys can smell it.
So how do you spell it? I've seen it spelled many different ways. This one's spelled ZA''ATAR.
Za'atar.
I've also seen it just ZATAR.
Right.
But it's a Lebanese or Middle Eastern spice.
I think you can actually buy it at Whole Foods too, but this is one that's made locally at Fennel and Figs.
Yeah, I would think a lot of stores, most stores that have a Middle Eastern aisle or a Middle Eastern section would have that.
Oh, Capital Market down on the Southern Bypass would probably have it.
For sure.
They've got a whole section of spices, and it would be in the Middle Eastern section. So this is Lebanese, but you also find za'atar in, I think, Greek A lot of restaurants that we used to go to in Nashville would put za'atar on their hummus. So you'd get a big bowl of hummus and they'd sprinkle za'atar on the top.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I used to kind of like a little hummus with my za'atar.
exactly.
But the ingredients on this are thyme, sumac, sesame seed, and sea salt. So yeah, if you hit something pretty hard with thyme and sesame seed, you get pretty close to this.
Well,
Can you get sumac?
It's right here. Sumac.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I found that at Whole Foods.
Cool.
So it's not the same thing as like poison sumac that grows in your backyard. That's different. So this is sumac, the herb. So and it's really good stuff. It's a sour kind of flavor. So that's the sour flavor in the za'atar. You like a little za'atar with, a little of this dish with your za'atar?
I like za'atar.
Apparently. Okay. Anyway, so diabetes, things you can eat if you're diabetic or trying to prevent diabetes. There we go. Oh, next month is October. It's almost October. By the end of this week, it's October. Unbelievable that it's even near that this far into 2021. I can't even believe it. But October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so I am teaching one in-person class at the Bell Road Y. So if you're in Montgomery, Bell Road Y, October the 5th at 11:30, and you get lunch. And we'll be talking about let's beat breast cancer because October is Breast Cancer Month. So yes, one-time class. We'll probably try it again in November, maybe the second Tuesday of November, some other topic, not sure what yet. Depends on what everybody wants to do, but October is the Let's Beat Breast Cancer class, and you will get lunch with that. And if you don't have to be a member of the Y to actually attend the class. So if you're not a member of the Y, that's fine. If you go on the Meatless Monday Montgomery Facebook page and look at the post I made about it, there's a link to actually sign up for the class. If you're a Y member, it's just $5. If you're not a Y member, it's $10. So the Y is actually covering most of the cost of this class because it's going to cost a lot more than that for the food. So that's a bargain right there. And you get lunch for $5 or $10 if you're not a member. So good reason to join the Y.
Yeah.
Actually coming up, I think in November I think it's no join fee November. So if you want to join the Y, I teach fitness classes at the Y too. So I'm pretty sure November is no join fee November. So if you want to join in November, there's no joining fee. Or you can bring a canned goods. You can bring canned goods and that replaces your joining fee. So yeah. Also, if you are limited income, the Y is a nonprofit. So they have a sliding fee scale, and you can pay less to be a member of the Y.
Yeah. So we've got so much going on. Join her for classes at the Y, for the cooking classes at the Y with breast cancer. Mm-hmm. Join her for glide classes at the Y.
Exactly.
Another big thing we've got going on is our YouTube channel called Strickland's and Friends. That's that Apparand thing. Strickland's and Friends.
Ampersand?
Yeah, that.
A
seasonal whole food plant-based cookbook, a seasonal WFPB cookbook. Mm-hmm. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. I love this live stuff. It's kind of fun. The problem solving is kind of fun. If anybody has a good idea on how to turn a speaker off of an iPhone 12 when you're not using the phone, let me know.
I know. Kept giving us feedback.
But the YouTube stuff, it satisfies the perfectionist in me a little bit better because we can actually get that right.
So, and we're hoping maybe in 2022 to be back at Whole Foods again. We'll have to see. I don't know. It just depends on what's going on with the pandemic, and the numbers are going down right now. They're heading in the right direction. So the more people get vaccinated, and
there's a lot of things would have to come together to get Whole Foods going again.
Right.
Hopefully it will.
Well,
but we'll have to see.
They were, until the Delta variant hit, they were talking about doing, starting it back again and having their food sampling and all that stuff they used to do. And then the Delta variant happened. So let's just pray there's no more variants out there.
We'll have to see. They've had changes in personnel, and we'll have to see if this concept survives it.
Yeah, let's hope so. But anyway, all right. So we'll be back at the end of October, probably talking about breast cancer and any other questions you might happen to have. So if you have other questions, just list them in the what does that say? How do we?
So we do not have a cookbook ourselves, But there's a great book out now called Food is Climate by Glenn Mercer. It just came out about 2 weeks ago. She has 3 recipes in the book. And if you purchase the book and send Mr. Mercer an email saying that you've got the book, he'll help you access some bonus content, which has another 3 recipes of hers, including
one recipe of mine.
the roasted red pepper sauce.
The roasted red pepper
Yeah,
sauce
that's the one
is
you
the
want.
best. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you could do that, or you could just let me know if you bought the book, and I'll send it to you because I have the bonus section too, so I can send it to you as easily as he can. So, but yeah, it's a great book. Also, So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. That's the cooking show that I'm on. The next live one is October the 9th, and hopefully So Many Cooks is going to come out with a cookbook pretty soon. So we're working on that. But you could go to So Many Cooks in the Kitchen and see lots and lots of cooking videos. It's also on the Plant-Based Network. It's on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and YouTube. So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, and it's on Facebook. So we have a bunch of live videos you can watch. If you're not interested in part of it, just fast forward through to the next recipe. And every time we film, which is about once a month, we have a different topic. So October the 9th, it will be, I think it's fall recipes, and I'm doing a stuffed acorn squash. So, which is delicious. Our dog is making a lot of noise. Hello, Belle. Come on. I think she just wanted some water. So, all right, come on, good girl. Oh my goodness.
Wants a treat for going
She
in and
wants
out
a
the door.
treat. I don't know if you can see her. Anyway, all right. So yeah, I think we should do, oh, that's our cookbook is our YouTube channel. So that's our cookbook. Right. It is. It's a seasonal whole food plant-based cookbook.
Right.
In video form. So yeah. And the recipes are on there, right? Some semblance of a recipe is on.
I mean, really, the way we do it is we try to put the list of ingredients in the video's description,
Mhm.
and then the video actually serves as the cookbook, as the
Right.
recipe.
And you can cook along. So if you get the list of ingredients, then go back and watch the video, pause it, when you need to, and cook along. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, so also on So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, that's a fun show. We've had one show a month since May of 2020. So there's quite a bit of them out there to watch now with gobs of recipes on that. So yeah, I would watch So Many Cooks in the Kitchen in addition to our YouTube channel too. So cool. Any other questions?
we're set.
Nope, we're good. All right.
Hey, thank you very
Thanks
much
for
for
watching.
joining us, y'all. We really miss being face to face with you
know.
at those programs at Whole Foods. But yeah, y'all asking some questions while it's live is, it's the next best thing. It feels like you're here, and it'd be nice if we were closer.
I know, that would be good. And then try this recipe if you get a chance, because this stuff is, look at that. It's just delicious. Oh my goodness. It's very filling too. I've only had a few bites. I'm like, oh my goodness. But yeah, if you didn't see before, it's in this book, Dr. Neil Bernard's Program for Reversing Diabetes, the scientifically proven system for reversing diabetes without drugs.
The name of the recipe again?
The name of the recipe is Lebanese style lentils and pasta, and it's delicious. So absolutely give that one a try. There's some really good recipes in this book. So yeah.
Thanks
All right.
again.
Cool.
Have a
Thanks
good
for
evening.
watching. See y'all later.